Most artists think they know why their song's not getting added to editorial playlists or even indie playlists when they pitch it to curators. But it's not what you think. It's not because of the algorithm, it's not because of gatekeepers, and it's not because you're an independent artist. The answer I share in this video as I interview my man Josh Frericks. Let's jump into it. So Josh, thank you so much, dude, for doing this interview, man. How you doing?
Bro, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here, man. I'm just chilling in the studio that just got built, which is awesome,
Looks
and
good.
feeling good in a new space, man.
Yeah, for sure. So tell people, a little bit about you, how long you've been mixing, producing, and maybe some of your bigger projects and stuff.
Dude, I've been a producer for probably, I would say, about 15 years, and that's what got me into mixing because you don't have a budget for a mixer, especially when you're starting out. So,
Yeah.
you do all your own stuff. You're mixing, you're mastering, you learn how to turn things up loud enough, whatever. Well, over the years, I noticed that mixing was really natural to me.
Yeah.
And when I first moved to Nashville, which was about 6 years ago, I didn't have any real connections in town yet. I had a few friends, but it was pretty much just coming in cold and like trusting that God was going to open the right doors. So
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to mix for some kind of indie thing. And they were like, "Are you a mixer?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, bro, let's do it." And
Yeah.
I basically from there have mixed around, I would say, 500 to 700 songs. And
Dang.
dude, it just, the nuances of what you learn from time to time to time just keeps getting greater as you go on. And now, I'm mixing, like for Sync Artists, I'm working on that song for you. I'll be finishing soon. I'm
Yeah.
working with Flurry. I'm working with, Danny Goki was something that I mixed today, which is more of a Christian thing for CMG.
Yeah.
Jesus Culture last week. I did some Cade Thompson stuff back for Christmas. And man, it's
Crazy.
like I'm doing great indie work. I'm doing great label work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had been like really heavy handed on producing for a long time. And I've had this switch in the last few years that, I'm kind of going with where the blessing is and with what I
Yeah.
love. I
Yeah.
do love producing. I don't think that I'll stop, but I've
Yeah.
taken a more intentional heavy hand on the mixing side. And dude,
Yeah.
it's been
That's it.
great. It
Well,
works
you
well with my family life. It works well for my schedule, like all of it.
Yeah, well, you said something really polarizing that stuck out to me and why I wanted to do this interview. And it
Sure.
was that, like, I can't remember the stat you said, but it was like the 80% of the reason why a song doesn't get added to a Spotify playlist is because of the mix.
Oh,
You wanna recorrect my quote or just talk on
I
that
can't
a minute?
remember the exact quote, but I will tell you from experience, people can hear a great production with a rough mix and they just roll their eyes.
Yeah,
It's not that you don't have a great song. Now, there are things in production that I would say from a producer standpoint, like don't put me to sleep with the intro. Do something, right? Grab my
yeah,
attention. And it doesn't need to be crazy loud every time. There are tons of amazing songs that do well with a gentle, nuanced start, but do something that catches my ear and doesn't just keep me like, "Cool, I get it. You did 1 4 6 5 and we're waiting for you to get to the verse." That
yeah,
is an important production element. But dude, I spent some time earlier in my career helping with playlisting, helping with curating. So I like learned what it really means to approve a song and why, like, because you don't think about this when you're making it. You're like, "Oh, this sounds dope. Everybody's gonna love it."
yeah,
And then you get this outside 1,000 foot view when you're looking at other people's music because you're making a decision on whether or not they're going to go on a playlist in 30 seconds, maybe 45 if you're being
yeah,
generous. So it's like
yeah,
you hit play, the mix doesn't sound good. Almost a definite no, because like maybe the
yeah,
vocals are a little too bright, a little too crispy, but they're like, it's okay. The mix is most of the way there. Dude, that is such a huge thing. And then you go through the song in a couple other spots. If the chorus doesn't feel balanced right, if the bridge doesn't feel balanced
yeah,
right, you just
yeah,
have to move on because, dude,
yeah,
what's competitive is pro. And if you don't
yeah,
sound pro, as hard as it is, it's very unlikely it's going to work because, you're
yeah.
not going to fit amongst everything else on there.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, yeah, the song is dope, and it's almost like, "Oh, I would
Yes.
love to add this," and then sometimes, like, maybe the music and the verse is fine, but the chorus is just like or maybe
Yes.
there's a snare or something, and it's just
It's
like
just like poking out. The snare's like, and it's
yeah, and
like
I'm
cutting through your vocal. It's such a thing.
And, like, you're making me think, like, okay, yeah, like, for indie curating, for indie playlists, you know, you technically have to in most cases, they want you to listen to 45 seconds to a minute,
Yes.
mostly a minute, and so that's fine that you're doing that and you get the full scope, but, like, uh, Spotify curators for Spotify editorial playlists, they ain't gonna they're just like,
Oh,
get because like, I
well,
was
and it's the
using
same way in the sync industry too. I mean, people, you've
wow,
got a music supervisor.
wow.
Well, they have 50 songs that are pitched for this one thing, and they all probably have a similar vibe and a similar energy. So if they hit two or three spots and it's not it, they don't listen to the rest. It's done. They
Oh
just
my
move on.
gosh, dude. Dude, that's so good. And like I think all the money needs to go into a producer that can mix or into the production and the mix, and I don't think mastering is as important. What do you have to say? What's your thoughts on that?
So this is not something I typically advertise because, people are like, "Oh, you produce and you mix. That's enough." If I start telling people I master, they're like, "All right, bro, you do jack of all trades thing." Well, I didn't mean to become a mastering engineer, and I've mastered around 2 or 3 thousand songs for Warner Chappell, for different labels, for
Yeah.
indies and everything in between. Now I do a lot less of it now, but I will say that mastering, as long as you can get a transparent master hitting at -4 or -5 LUFS, you're in pretty good shape. But if you're not kind of hitting that number, it's just not going to set, like, you're going to hear a song on a playlist and then you're going to hear yours and you're like, why does it sound quieter? Because, yeah,
Yeah.
you can still get it super loud, but there's like a level that is just
Yeah.
sort of standard. And I,
Yeah.
I will say mastering is important. I really, really like warn people against using stuff like Ozone mastering, or like Logic has this mastering button. You
And
know,
isn't some of the distributors are offering it, and I've heard some nightmare stories about that. It's like, "Yeah, you've distributed through us and we'll normalize it and master it for you." And I've heard like some crazy wonky stories.
well, like Lander, right? Lander, for
Yeah.
instance, is a good AI mastering software. It's not great because I tried it out, because I was curious. I was like, what's this thing gonna do? So I would take a gentle song and it would master it, and maybe it would crunch it a little bit, but it sounded pretty good. And then I took something where I had, like, let's say a syncy trailer moment where you've got these like like big moments where there's low end and low end control needs to be done, but you still have
Yeah.
to keep it up. Dude, it like made the vocals and everything duck so hard because it just auto does a thing, right? It
Yeah.
finds a sample and it just goes boom. In mastering, you have automated things when you need to. You have dynamic
Right.
limiters, dynamic compressors, you've got dynamic EQ. Sometimes it's mid side. So I will say that, like, mastering, if you can't do it yourself, I would suggest hiring
Yeah.
somebody else because
Yeah.
it does matter at the end, but
Yeah.
mix is ultimately the most important
Yeah.
because every nuance is handled there.
If mix is king, mastering is queen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say mastering is like the king's hand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know?
You're right, man. I probably shouldn't be so black and white with that statement because like I have heard even on certain songs that like yeah, the mix is really good, but then yeah, you play a song on Spotify or wherever and it's not as hot
No.
and you got to turn it up and that's, not necessarily a good look or like it might sound good when you got your headphones on, but when you play it in the car and that's where I think
Yes.
when it's mixed well and it's mastered well, I feel like it can get played anywhere and it sounds good. It shouldn't be one of
I
those,
mean, it
well,
should. It
sounds
should
good here or
translate.
there.
Yes. And for me, like, even though I'm working in a room that sounds great and I'm used to it, my low end is balanced, so I've got the great stereo image. I always check my mixes, even if it's just for a moment, through my AirPod Pros, because that's what everybody listens to their music on by
Yeah.
and large. And if it sounds good in the studio and it sounds good in the AirPod Pros, I've never been like, I'm going to go check my car and like check here and check there. I do those two things. And I think I use the AirPods probably 40% of the time when I'm like not totally sure, but I'm like, I like it, but I just want
Yeah.
to be 100% that it works on
Yeah.
consumer stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, you want to make sure that you have a lot of balance. And like, I know for me, one of the things I did as a newer mix engineer that was sort of unintentionally amateur is like, I thought more low end meant bigger. It meant good. Like,
Yeah.
bro, that 808 is hitting so hard. And it's like, yeah, but it's like overwhelming everything. And
Yeah.
I've had to learn how to like get the presence out of the 808 or the bass or whatever, keep the boom in it, but not have it be boomy. Because if it's
Yeah.
too boomy, let's even go into the mastering. Well, then what's going to happen? The mastering is going to hit the limiter and the booms are going to cause more problems. And you're like, well, it sounded like a vibe in the mix, but now I can't get it loud enough. So you're going
Yeah.
through this like whole balance thing. I mean,
That's
that's
awesome.
why some people come to it quicker, but it took me a good number of years of just
Yeah.
doing this all the time to
Yeah.
learn that stuff, and
Yeah.
becoming an unintentional mastering engineer also
Yeah.
just helped me kind of
Yeah.
dial it in further.
Yeah. Well, I remember my first producer that, used to literally produce, mix, and he'd master. And I'll never forget when he said, "You got to take it somewhere else to get it mastered." And I was like, "What? Like, I got
Yeah.
to take it?" And then I remembered working with producers that didn't do the final mix. And I guess I
No.
was just so spoiled for so long, and that, like, not everyone does everything, and it's finding people that, are talented and gifted. But like, I just think it's just such a powerful statement that our artists need to know that, like, if you even want to get a chance in the room, whether that's with sync, added to a playlist, maybe a
Oh yeah.
label, booking agent, or manager, the song has to sound good. Like, the mix has to be pro. Like, I think
Even
we
as
I
a
think
producer myself, I'm sorry, I
yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
buddy.
you're
Sorry.
good. No, you're good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even as a sync producer myself, like I've had to tell a lot of people no, not because they are terrible, but because I only have so much time. I want to do a great job, and I know if I can hear something from somebody and it's killer, then I'm gonna say I'm a lot more likely to say yes than I am to somebody where it sounds like pretty good and the mix is all right, and I can tell they've got vocals that have great potential, but it's not hitting right, as opposed to somebody who sends me something that sounds dialed. I'm like, easy. Easy,
Yeah.
yes.
Are you
And I'm
talking
not
about
even
mixing? Are you talking about doing a song together for sync? Or are you talking about
well, I'm saying as a producer, because I mix most of the time. I produce for Sync and a little bit for Christian.
right.
And as a producer for Sync, I've had a ton of people ask me if they can come on. And I'm never like, no, I'm too cool for you. It's nothing like that. It's
Yeah,
more
yeah,
like if I can't hear that you've got the potential and the mix is part of that, like it's hard to say yes.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I think, as you're saying, opportunities, right?
yeah,
People want to get in the rooms, whether it's having a label notice you or it's having a producer that you want to work with down the road
yeah,
notice you. Man, you got to be reaching for that highest step that you can at the
yeah,
tier that you're at. And for producers, like a lesson that I ended up becoming a mix engineer, but I didn't plan to.
yeah,
I felt this pressure. Like if I didn't do everything, I wasn't great, or if I didn't know how to bring it to the last final step, that there was something missing in me as a creative. And dude, there are some incredible producers that are okay at mixing. They're not going to be terrible. They know how to balance it, but that's just not what they do, and they do a
yeah,
great job, and we're all meant to kind of help and serve each other. There are
yeah,
totally people who do everything, but that's why I think like mastering is an important service, mixing is an important
yeah,
service, and even
yeah,
if you can get a mix to 80 or 90%
yeah,
as your producer mix, because the competition is so high these days and everybody's getting
yeah,
so much better, that last 10% might be the difference between you or somebody else getting the opportunity.
yeah, yeah.
It's
And
crazy.
how did we get connected? Did I DM you, or did you DM me? I don't
Dude,
even remember.
what's funny? I've never told you this, but like I was like not trying to be weird, but I had like looked, I was like, oh, this guy looks awesome. I want to work with him. But I was like, should I follow him? No, I don't want to seem too hungry. This was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then like I think like you followed me and I was like, whoa, it's manifest. And then we started messaging. Don't know if it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
me or you. I think it
yeah,
was
yeah,
me like, bro, hey, so
yeah,
great
yeah,
to
yeah,
meet you.
yeah,
And it was a natural thing. It was like 2, 3 years back. And
yeah,
I knew who you were because I work with Josh Silverberg in the sync world, and I'm signed with Savage, and I know that you guys are friends and had done some stuff, and I don't know how it
yeah,
came up, but like your name came up, and I looked you
yeah,
up, and I
yeah,
was like, oh man, dude's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's it right there. Like, um, I followed you or you followed me. What do? We check out people's profile. I know I look up producers on Spotify. Okay, what has he done? Who's he worked
Yeah,
with?
for sure. What are they
Do I
doing?
like it? Like, and literally going, oh, the mix is good. The production's good. Okay, the artist is cool. Yeah, this guy should do something. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
next thing you know, we've done a bunch of writing sessions together and stuff. And I just like it's like your resume is online, right? Like it's just
Yeah, dude, people look at what I mean, I think so many say, posting isn't important, and this is as somebody who needs to post more, but I'm
yeah,
just busy, and I'm trying to figure that out
sure,
my best as I
yeah,
can. But it's true, man. When you're looking to work with somebody, you look at what they've been doing, and you look on their
yeah,
posts, you look on their YouTube, you look on their Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and that is really the true tell of what somebody's doing because they're sharing their inside world, their perspective. There's nowhere else you can get that because you're not with them.
yeah.
If you don't put it out there, no one will ever know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly, like, you're grinding, and honestly, I feel like I'm not saying producers that post on social media are not as talented or doing work, but like, guys that are busy, like you're busy, you're
Yeah.
doing stuff, you're doing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm doing 12 or 13 mixes this week. I'm also working on a few productions, but I just pop in and out of those. I worked for a production this morning for a couple hours. I'm doing some sync stuff tomorrow, and I'm doing a little bit of composing on Friday. But like all that stuff, that's why when you say no to people, it's not because you don't like them, but if it's not the
Yeah,
right fit, you can't. If you say yes to something, you have to say no
yeah,
to something else. So
yeah.
being
Or it's
busy,
not,
yeah.
or it's not a big enough opportunity is what I say. Like, some
That's
people just,
the unspoken that I was kind of saying.
yeah.
Absolutely. You know?
And how do it so my thought is like, you got to follow up obviously with people, and you got to keep growing, and I think like check in later. Some people it's a flat no, but it's like how badly do you want to work with that person? But like get to work, and then, you know, maybe work with the people they've worked with so that your name keeps
Yes.
coming up, you know?
You know, that's so funny, man. It's like I think that if you want to be in a certain circle, you have to find your way into it. And if it's adjacent, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
with Silverberg, I didn't intend to start working with him. We met each other through like a prayer kind of like medical situation, and he was just a
yeah,
friend, and it
yeah,
turned into something. And it's just I've been very blessed to have
yeah,
met him and been put into that situation very naturally.
yeah,
But I know that even in the mixing world, like as I've been growing and my name has been getting in more places, and now there's a lot happening, it's been like, okay, they're not saying yes to me yet. Let me
right,
work really hard for a few years, kind of saying, working with people that maybe they have worked with in the past. I've
yeah,
done that and it worked.
yeah,
It actually
yeah,
works because they're paying attention to the
yeah,
people they've been associated with, and they go, "Oh, who did that? Oh, it's that
yeah,
guy or
yeah.
that girl or whatever." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of artists, producers underestimate how long things take, and that like you could be I call them campaigns. It's like you're campaigning to work with that person. Sometimes that takes 6 months, sometimes it takes 6 years, you know. But
Yes,
you got to
dude.
be in it for the long term, and like and next thing you know, you're in the room with some of those amazing people or collaborating or writing with like they're just normal people at the end of the day, but sometimes it's just who like to get in those rooms,
Dude,
right? Like,
yes, and I'm in my 30s, bro. Like into my 30s. And I know for me, I was writing music for commercials for like Bank of America and Shell when I was 18. So
yeah,
we're talking like a long time ago. And it's been a long road getting here. And all the things that you learn along the way prepare you for the times when the opportunity comes. You don't want to get the right opportunity at the wrong time. So you're right.
woo,
Patience is huge. You
yeah,
got to have patience. And I know for me, I still fight with that because, I have dreams of beyond where I am now, and I'm
yeah,
sure that they'll happen, bro. I have to keep going down that road, pursuing it, trusting, being patient, but working as best as you can with what you have at that moment, right?
yeah,
If I've
yeah,
got an artist, whether they're an indie artist and they're medium, or I've got a label artist and they're at the top of their game, if I'm mixing that song, I'm not putting it out or giving it to them until I feel like I've, done every detail to make myself
yeah,
get as satisfied as I can with it. And if
yeah,
you take that approach with everything, it's
yeah,
going to come through.
yeah. And as an artist I've worked with, I don't know how many producers now, but I appreciate you know, when someone makes, even if I have to wait a little longer, I appreciate them making me wait longer to hear something great, as opposed to just sharing every little step of the way. As an artist, like, God bless you. Like
I don't
I
share
don't,
it until it's done, bro.
yeah,
Unless an artist like specifically requests it. I'm
yeah,
like, all right, I don't want to show them my drums because they're cool now with their unmixed vocal. No
yeah,
artist wants to hear that. They're like,
yeah,
what is an artist paying attention to? Their vocals
yeah,
sounding amazing in the
yeah,
track. Well, how do you do that? You got to do everything.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it takes a
yeah,
long time.
yeah. Well, dude, what advice would you have for artists and producers out there? Give us some last advice for these peeps out here.
I would say as an artist, and this kind of recaps something you and I talked about in the interview that we did, I think for another thing that you've got going on a platform.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the sync coaching thing. Yeah.
yes, exactly. If you're an artist, especially with what's going on with AI and music these days and voice modeling and all that stuff, AI is going to take more of a forefront in the space. It's going to be competing for artist spaces. It's going to have forward facing content where they've got everything, every little, physical thing all tweaked to the most ideal whatever. And I think that AI will do well in music. And that's a sad thing. But what I think we can do to combat against this, and I've said this to a few artists, be your own personal brand. Let people see who you are, share
Mhm.
with them what you're going through, and, just let people watch you. You don't have to be overly filtered. There's wisdom. You don't have to be like, I was in the bathroom all night. It was really rough.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's probably a bad example, but
Yeah.
my point is like, let people see a little bit of who you are because that's what's going to stand out. Talented artists that are somebody that you want to follow because they're a human being and you want to see them win.
Good. That's good.
And
Yeah.
I would say as a producer, man, just stop trying. Stop. I'm trying to use the right language here because I don't want to sound condemning, but courses and all this stuff, like, yes, they help you, but nothing helps you as much as just doing the freaking work, bro. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing that could have replaced my like the 10,000 hour thing. I'm probably double that at this point with
Yeah.
production and
Yeah.
mixing work. And there is nothing. I mean, I've met with, my heroes at different times in my life that maybe I'm in a even place with now, but at that time I was like, oh my goodness, it's such and such. And, they told me things that I just couldn't understand, but to them was normal. Well, now you put me 10,000 hours deeper. I just see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that what I'm going to see 10 years from now is going to be more mature and more balanced and nuanced than what I see now. So, as a producer, like if you have a weakness in mixing, hire a mix engineer. If you have a weakness in keys, there are people that do keys programming that are amazing,
And
right?
see if
Like if
they'll
you,
show you, like it, you know, pay them extra. Dude, can you show me what you did to fix my mix? I'm trying to
yes,
learn. Like toss them an extra 50 or 100. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
100%. Like, and same thing with drum programming. Like, there's guys that are like, they're okay with the kick and the snare, but they're like, I'm not sure what to do with all these nuances.
yeah,
I know in Nashville, I've done drum programming on huge work, Grammy work, all kinds of stuff. Now, I only did that because I was already producer for such a long time. But like as you're growing, man, if you have a weakness, doesn't mean you're a weak producer. It just means that you need to hire somebody on your team. Because when
yeah,
I do like Christian work, for instance, production wise, I hire a drummer, I hire a guitarist, I hire a bassist. I can play guitar pretty well. I can play bass really well.
yeah,
But I want the people that live in that world every day that like that's what they live and breathe and they are freaking crazy fantastic. And as a producer, my job, yes, it's awesome if I'm super musical and I'm doing all this stuff and I feel great about myself and everybody's like, good job, buddy. Like nobody
yeah,
really cares. But that's the kind of internal feeling that you have. It's all
yeah,
about the product. So like
yeah,
think about the architect of a home. He's no less talented of an architect because he hired a drywall guy and a plumber and an electrician. It's about the curation and the wisdom of getting your vision out there. And if that means somebody else or it means you, that doesn't matter as much as what the outcome is. You have to have the wisdom to see what you're going to get to.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good, dude. Yeah, humbling yourself. Like I sent my song to somebody the other day or today before I called you just to get some feedback on some harmonies and stuff. And it's just like
Yeah.
I could just sign off on it. It's good enough, but it's just like, why not get that extra help, that extra ear on it to just
Yeah.
pull it up a little bit more? I think humbling yourself and bringing the people in. That's where the greatness comes from. It's a if your dream does not require a team, you're not thinking big enough. That's what
Yes,
I like to
dude.
say.
Yeah, you can't do anything on an island. And as you said, like good enough, man, good
Yeah,
enough is the enemy of your success, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Like if you good enough means not on that playlist. It
yeah,
means like, cool, I cut a corner. You
yeah,
think it won't go notice and you're like, it's still
yeah,
got traction. Yeah,
yeah,
well, maybe you got 50,000 streams, but you could have had
yeah.
500,000, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, dude, where can people get in contact with you?
I would say the best place to get in touch with me would be on Instagram. It's
Okay,
I am Jalen Music. It's
I am Jalen.
IAMJLYN Music.
Okay,
Jalen is my sync name. That's what I use as sort of my sync artist profile, and it's become very unintentionally kind of more what people know me as on all sides. And man, I would love to hear from artists or producers looking to get some help on a mix or maybe just some help on like, hey, how do I break through this wall? What do you think about this?
yeah.
I'd love to hear from people and dude, help them elevate their music
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much, bro. I'll make sure I put the links below this video.
for
Appreciate you
sure.
and look forward to our next writing session, brother. Thanks for watching this video. I want to invite you to my next free Spotify masterclass as I share the 3 mistakes stopping you from growing on Spotify. I do this live. I'll put the link below. It's free to register. Just go to manifest.com/Spotify training, and I'll see you there.